All right. Hi, everyone. It's so good to see all of you. Welcome to our Fall 2025 Jammy Career Panel Kickoff event. My name is Yas Hardaway, and I'm the Executive Director of Career Services at GSEP. And this is a partnership between our Career Services and Alumni Engagement departments. So, for some of you who are new to our Jammy Communities of Practice series, you may be wondering, what is Jammy? Jammy is a Swahili term for community, and our Jammy Communities of Practice programs are designed to provide up-to-date labor market information in the fields of education and psychology, as well as to help you expand your Pepperdine community, your Pepperdine network. Our topic for this fall kickoff event is the faculty track, a roadmap for graduate students. So in this session, we hope for you to be able to gain some insight on how to land an adjunct and full-time faculty position. In the fall, we generally have our Jammy career panels, and these are moderated Q&A panels. And in the spring, we have our Jammy career chats, which are interactive breakout room conversations. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so let's talk about our agenda for today. I'll start by highlighting some learning outcomes, what we hope that all of you will gain from our session. I'll cover a few housekeeping, and then I'll turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Renee Dorn, who will lead us in our panelist introductions and moderated Q&A. Then hopefully we'll have a chance to take a couple audience questions. So feel free to put your questions and comments in the chat as they come up. And then we'll close out with some important resources and share what's next for our fall season. So our learning outcomes, what do we hope you will gain today? Our learning outcomes are really based on our GSEP Career Services vision. And our vision is that every graduate would have the clarity, the confidence, and the community to be able to access, thrive in, and transform the future workplace. So today, we hope that you will gain additional clarity about the next step in your career planning. We hope that you will gain confidence about your ability to successfully move towards your next career objective. And we hope that you will expand your community of industry professionals from the Pepperdine Network. The session is being recorded, and the recording will be posted on our GSEP YouTube playlist. And my colleague Franya will go ahead and put the link to the playlist in the chat so you can see some of our other Jammy recordings as well. If you would like to use the live transcription option, I encourage you to do so. And then I also encourage you, if you can, to put your camera on so that we can see you, and use the rename tool to include your first and last name so that we know who's in the room with us today. I know not everyone is able to do that, but if you can, that would be great. Also in the chat will be our Jammy Communities of Practice participant drive link. So through that link, you'll be able to also access the recording when it's posted, as well as some of the resources that we'll be sharing today. In addition, we have our speaker lineup in the participant drive. So that'll give you an opportunity to read a little bit about the bios of our speakers today. All right, without further ado, let me turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Renee Dorn, our Director of Alumni Engagement, who will introduce our panelists. Dr. Dorn?
Thank you so much, Yaz. As Yaz said, I am Dr. Renee Dorn. I'm GSEP's Director of Alumni Engagement, and I'm always excited for our alums to participate in any of the events that we have with GSEP. But today, not only do we have GSEP alums, we also have a Seaver alum, as well as a couple of our GSEP. So without further ado, let me get started and introduce you to our panelists. So our first panelist is Kanjit Farrell. Welcome, Kanjit.
Hi, great to see you.
Hello, hello. You'll be able to see her on the screen any minute.
Can you see me? Can you hear me and see me? I can hear and see everybody.
I can hear you.
But you
We know
can't
you're
see
there.
me. I don't know what's going on because I can see everybody so clearly.
There you are.
Okay, good. Okay.
So welcome, welcome. You are one of our GSEP alums. Tell us a little bit about your background with GSEP, and then tell us what you're doing today.
Yeah, I loved my time at Pepperdine. It was one of the best programs and life-changing, and all the ways that a program can be. Great mentorship, friendships were born from the program.
And
Um,
tell everyone which program you graduated from.
I was in the MFT program, so Masters of Clinical Psych with emphasis in marriage and family therapy. And let's see, from there, I went and did clinical work. I opened my own practice in 2010. I'm a certified sex therapist. I'm a trauma therapist, and I went back and got a second master's in conflict resolution from Columbia. And my education really is geared at serving my key population, which are couples. And yeah, that's where I am. I teach adjunct in our GSEP program, the Masters for Marriage and Family Therapy. I teach human sexuality. I teach human development, a few other courses as well.
That's wonderful. And we're going to hear more from Conjit in a few minutes. So welcome.
Thank you.
Next, we have another alum, Anna Guzman. Welcome, Anna.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, hello. We hear you. We hear you. We know you're there.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for providing this space for all of us to be together and to learn from one another. I am an alumni of the MA program in TESOL, and I'm a current student in the doctoral program in learning technologies. I have taught at CSUN. I taught child development and art education with an emphasis kind of teaching students how to adapt ESL strategies into their teaching. So I was teaching teachers. Currently, I'm an adjunct at Santa Monica College, Pasadena City College, and I'm an ESL advisor for LAUSD. And I'm just really grateful to be here. Thank you.
And we're glad that you're here with us. Thank you, Anna. And you're going to hear a little bit more from Anna in a few minutes. Welcome, welcome. Next, we have another alum, Dr. Charles Apong. Welcome, Dr. Apong.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Dorn. I appreciate it. Greetings to everyone.
So, Dr. Apong, tell us a little bit about the program that you graduated from, more than one program within GSEP, and then tell us what you're doing today.
Absolutely. So I did the Masters of Ed Psych at Pepperdine, and then I went on to I was the second class that did the PhD program when it was introduced by Dr. June Schmieder. I currently work as an adjunct at a few different schools. I teach film and media studies at Loyola Marymount Universities. I also teach Pan-African Studies, and then I also teach Africana Studies at Cal State, LA, and Cal State Dominguez. And then I'm a thesis and dissertation chair at Pacific Oaks College.
You're busy, Dr. Apong.
I am.
Well, we're going to hear a little bit more from Dr. Apong in a few minutes. So welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Next, we have Dr. Elizabeth Walker, who is a Seaver grad. So welcome, Dr. Walker.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I graduated from Pepperdine in Seaver in 2003, but I must say that my family's been attached to GSEP since before I was born. They they went there from when they got their teaching credentials, and then my mother got her master's at GSEP a very long time ago, like in the early 90s. So my dissertation was on Pepperdine. So I am definitely Pepperdine through and through.
That's wonderful. Pepperdine family. That's great. That's great. So tell us what you're doing now in your career.
Okay, so I have been a college professor at at both 2 years and 4 year institutions for almost 20 years now. And currently, I am a full professor of political science and global studies at College of the Desert. And 10 years ago, I started an educational consulting company called the Walker Conagar Group. And we evolved to where 3 years ago, we created a conference called the Community College Conference. And this is our third year going.
That's wonderful. So we're going to hear a little bit more from Dr. Walker about all of this. So thank you, Dr. Walker, for being with us. And last but not least, we have one of our own GSEP professors, Dr. Kevin Wong. Welcome, Dr. Wong.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm a former elementary school teacher, so teaching's always been in my blood. And then I got my doctorate at NYU in New York. And while I was there, that's when I started adjuncting, going into teaching in teacher ed while I was doing my doctorate. And then that led to a full-time lecturer position at a community college in the Bronx while I was completing my doctorate. And then now I'm here at Pepperdine. I'm on the tenure track. I actually apply for tenure in about a week and a half, so I need to finish up those materials, but grateful to be here.
Thank you for being with us. We know all of you are very, very busy, so we appreciate you being a part of today's panel discussion. So let's get started with all the panelists. Many times students are very much interested in becoming a faculty member in teaching. So I want to ask each one of you, how did you get started? What were maybe some of the steps that you took in order to get your foot in the door so that you could teach at maybe a community college or a university? So I'll start with Dr. Wong, since you said you're on the tenure track right now. So how did you get started?
You know, a lot of it was being at the right place at the right time. I was pursuing my PhD at NYU. I happened to take a class with somebody who was chairing the program that required an adjunct professor who's and that those expertise aligned with what I was able to do, and my background in teaching elementary school actually was really critical to doing that. So she asked me, I had imposter syndrome, and I'm like, I can't do this, but sure, let's go for it. So, and that was a really great experience. So from then I knew I liked teacher preparation, and kind of yeah, one job kind of led to another because they're like, oh, you taught literacy. Can you also teach language and blah blah blah? And I'm like, not really, but yes, I can do that. So kind of went that path.
Okay, all right. Dr. Apong, what about you? How did you get started with that, with teaching?
Network, some good folks. So in fact, my dissertation, a few of the people who developed frameworks, theoretical frameworks in my dissertation were part of that. I reached out to those people before my dissertation process, and I was offered a job just kind of based on the knowledge base in which I was going in. And that's pretty much, I mean, that's pretty much history. It was Dr. Nana Lawson Bush at Cal State, Los Angeles, in the College of Ethnic Studies. And that was my first teaching job. I have to shout out Pepperdine great and Dr. Ebony Kane because she connected me to Pacific Oaks College. And so that's kind of what got my foot in the door as a student. And yeah, I just say just a strong network of people within education just kind of didn't give any handouts. You know, it's more of a hand up and just making sure that the leg work was being done. So yeah, and talking to the right people.
Okay. So it's interesting because both Dr. Wong and Dr. Apong, they both said they knew someone or someone connected them. So on the psychology side, has that been this, have you been seeing the same thing, Kanjit? Was that how you got into teaching?
Yeah, I'm trying to be thoughtful about this because I know that some of our attendees are like, is there a concrete path that I can follow? I think for me it was kind of it hit a critical mass of things, and I think there was some God in there, honestly. So when I was a student, I was a part of AB Sci. We had the incredible Dr. Rowe. We had Dr. Piper Mandy, some of the wonderful AB Sci focused teachers that were here at Pepperdine. And I got to know that community, and I let people know I would like to teach at some point. Then I just stayed in touch. I just, would occasionally reach out to Yas and, Pepperdine alumni just to honestly just to check in. I really wasn't seeking anything, but I liked everybody and I just wanted to know how everybody was doing. I was also in a volunteer organization where another one of our esteemed professors, she was a guest and she was speaking there, and I got to meet her there. And that was it. But it wasn't like I was talking about any kind of opportunity. And then my mom got sick from cancer. And my mom used to be a professor at Northridge, and I think she might have taught at Long Beach too. And it was just very interesting. 2 days before she died, I got an offer. And so, my mom was like, one Professor Farrell leaves, another one comes.
Mm,
So that's just how it happened.
wow. That's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that. That was very personal. Dr. Walker, what about you? How did you get started into teaching?
Well, I have to say it is different from everyone else. I did not want to teach, and I knew that I wanted to get more into government. And so I started working in political campaigns early on in the early 20s, and I did not want to do this. I felt that this was not, I felt that I would be better off in a college teaching space, but the thought never occurred to me that I could be a college professor. I never seen anyone. This was my first, I just finished my first master's degree at Seton Hall. And I never had a Black woman as a professor in both undergrad or grad. And so the thought of getting even a PhD never even crossed my mind until I was working on my second master's degree. And so I decided, so how do I get into teaching? How do I get to become a professor? My mother was a K through 12, well, she was a high school teacher, so she didn't really provide any resources. I didn't really have anyone to reach to. So I started contacting people at community colleges and would drive everywhere and hand them my CV. And for a solid year, I got nowhere. And and eventually, and so then I bumbled on this the website for the California community colleges, and I looked and saw like, well, I'm really not qualified. My undergrad's in English, so I was like, I can't teach English. My master's is in English. And then I was like, well, I can't teach political science because my master's in public administration, so I need to go back to school. And so I enrolled in a master's of English program, and I became a I applied for to be a tutor at Compton College. And from Compton College, as a tutor, I got to know the chair. And then I was like, well, I can teach English here. And so then after a year, she allowed me to teach a class. And when she first saw me in person, she's like, oh my gosh, you look so young. And so then that instantly made me feel away. So then I tried to dress myself up so I can look older. And it then from there just kind of continued to where I would keep applying, keep redoing my CV. And then my biggest thing was I kept going. I found conferences where I could sit on the panel and present myself. And then and then that's how I ended up even getting some additional jobs, and which also led me to be full-time years later. Was people saw me as a panelist and they said, if I can engage this crowd, then I'm sure I can engage my college students. And that's how, and then I was invited to apply to different places. And that's how I picked up other employment at different other colleges. But it really wasn't a
It
who I
wasn't that
know.
straight path.
It wasn't a who I knew because I had to reach out and walk around and talk to folks and be like, you need to know me. So,
Well, no, thank you for sharing that, because not everyone, when they start a program, a master's program, thinks that, maybe I'm going to go teach or maybe not. They just don't know. So thank you for sharing that. Anna, I want to ask you too, how did you get start in teaching or the faculty track, because you're teaching at a few different colleges and universities?
Yeah, so I transitioned. I was originally a high school teacher. And then when I got my master's during COVID, I opted to transition. And honestly, I would say, a little bit of three things. One of it is courage. The second one is God, right? A higher power giving you strength to have the courage. And third is to network. So courage, I would find a position, I would apply for it. Sometimes we are limited by our brains and by what we think of ourselves and our imposter syndrome. And so we're like, oh, I'm not ready yet. I don't know how to do this yet. So you're second guessing yourself all the time. And there's a need for professors that really care and value students and provide what you give. So that was one. And then networking, right? Just staying in touch with your classmates, right? Sometimes you don't know where they might be, reach out to them. We were all kind of starting in that realm. So we were all juggling and running around everywhere, and we would complain, and we would like be like, oh my gosh, like I have to drive an hour here, an hour there. But that's how we found these jobs. So I got into Pasadena. I told a colleague, you know what, they're looking for people. Oh, okay. And then she would tell somebody else, and so forth and so forth. And I also volunteered. I volunteered in various committees and associations. I'm part of CATISOL and CABE and the California Art Education Association. And so those people also connect you. They remember your name, right? And they're like, oh, so if they have a colleague that is looking for someone, they'll throw your name there, and it's up to you, right, to interview and all of that. But at least they remember you. They know what you're doing, what your work is, what your interests are. And from there, that's really how it was. So I get scared, but I go for it, because the worst thing that'll happen is they'll say no. And so you keep going and you try another place. Really, honestly, that it's just to have the courage and overcome your own fears of rejection, I guess.
No, thank you for saying that, because a lot of times what holds us back are ourselves. So to believe in yourself to move ahead, that's wonderful. Thank you. I've been seeing some of the questions that are popping up, and one of them has to do with being an adjunct professor and even being a full-time professor. So maybe for those who don't know, what is the difference between being an adjunct and being a full-time? And then is it beneficial to just continue to be an adjunct, or should people move forward to try and become full-time? And I'm just going to open that up to the panel for anyone who wants to answer any of those questions.
I can answer that. So I think it's really up to you and how your life is and your situation is at the moment. So if you're full time, you're going to be really busy doing, I mean, probably maybe 40 plus hours. As a teacher, we have that for full time. But honestly, we're always doing things at home. We're always grading. We're always planning lessons. We're always, if you love what you're doing, like you're always in it, right? So as an adjunct, you have that flexibility of, oh, I can take that job and work Monday and Wednesday and maybe Friday morning, and I can pick up my kids, and or maybe I have something, I have classes, or I'm writing a dissertation. I gotta, I can work Saturday. So you have that flexibility, and every semester they will ask your availability, and you tell them your availability, and you accept or you don't. So that's the beauty of it, right? The cons of it is you don't get all those perks that you do as a full-time, and that certainty, that stability of knowing, right, that you're going to have this amount or this job. Because sometimes, yeah, you're offered a class, and then the next semester, because of funding, you're not offered that class, that same class. So yeah.
I would like to interject. So
Yes.
as a full-time is classified as, in a community college, is 27 hours a week. And so 27 hours means that includes your 5 hours of working, of 5 classes that you teach, which can be on campus or off campus, depends on, or online. It depends on the different colleges have a different requirement based on the number of hours or in-person classes that they would like. Currently, my campus doesn't have that requirement. And then you have 6 hours of office time, and then you have service towards your campus. So it's, you have to do certain, you either can, when it comes to clubs or sometimes some meetings. So on average, you're on campus maybe 2 times a week, at most 3 times a week. And that's not for, I know for me, I'm on campus 2 times a week for about 6 hours a week. 6 hours on Thursday and 4 hours on Tuesday. But as a whole, it is the job security, but the full-time allows you to also be a little bit more, even more flexible, because you get to choose the courses that you would like and the timing that you would like before the adjunct has the ability to select a class. So, and then plus, of course, whatever benefits, etc. But I think of the whole space as being entrepreneurial. I think of academia as an entrepreneurial space. It's, if you would like to work, you're going to get as much out of what you're interested in doing based on how much you're willing to put into it. And so there's a level of flexibility, when it comes to going to conferences, speaking engagements, writing books, publishing articles, different job ventures if you're interested. So it's all of these different facets that both adjunct and full-time allows you. It's just adjunct has a level of uncertainty that full-time does not.
Okay. So thank you, Dr. Walker, for that. So Kanjit and Dr. Apong and Dr. Wong, in addition to Dr. Walker, you all do other activities outside of teaching. So how do you balance your teaching, whether you're adjunct or full-time, with the outside activities? And is it more beneficial that you are adjunct so that you can engage in those outside activities?
Yeah, I'll go. So Dr. Craig made some very great valid points, as did Professor Guzman. So a lot of dependent factors here, right? Her conference. If you are a professor, full professor, or you've been called on to provide research for the university, there's a certain amount of dollars that are going to be allocated towards you or your department to go to conferences, to publish, because you're bringing in a certain amount of research to the institution. I won't use the term beneficial because, again, dependent factors. It may or may not be, if you have a family, I have a wife and 3 children, so there's a lot to consider, right? And these are babies, 1, 6, and 9. And so there's soccer, there's karate, you have to make sure that you're picking them up on time. And there's other things outside of that, right? Like I've been on a plane maybe about 12, 15 times this year, not just for conferences, but for entrepreneurial work, because you're called upon to do keynotes and all these different things that lend themselves or inform what it is that you teach. I'm also a filmmaker. So depending on what type of entrepreneur you are and what type of college, private or state, right, university, there's some of those things to consider. I want to congratulate Dr. Wong in advance. He's going up for tenure. And so when you look at an institution like Pepperdine, there's some variations between Pepperdine and LMU, right? They both have a religious recognition, but the movements are very nuanced between Pepperdine and LMU when considering factors of being a part-time lecturer, right? And that's a term they use. And in fact, we're starting, for those on the call, they're starting to veer more away from the term adjunct. Even at the state university, they're looking at it as more derogatory is what they call it, but more, they're using lecturer and then using professor. And depending on what you're up for, if you've been evaluated or observed, such as somebody like Dr. Wong, you can be up for tenure. And there are certain things that you have to submit in order to be considered for such. And so if we're talking about balance, it depends on what you're doing and what your end goal is. And then if you have a family, right? So these are all considerations that can be beneficial one way or the other. I think all of it is beneficial, and my colleagues all on the panel have great things working out for them. It just depends on what your end goal is. And for everybody on the call too, and just to make it, more human, like, what do you love to do? Like, I love film, right? But at the same time, I teach human development, and I love talking about African people and what that mark means to Pan-Africanism from a global lens, right? It's what my dissertation encompassed. And now my dissertation leads to these other things, which bring about other. I wanted what I was doing as a student to inform what I'd be doing in order not only to provide for my family, but to open up gates so that I can be a helping hand to those that want to be in that same position. And even if they don't, they can learn something from it the way I learned from people who went before me. So yeah, it just depends on what school, what institution, what you want to do, what the discipline is, and then two, I want to say something what Dr. Craig said too. We also have to consider the fact of there's industry and then there's the academic institution. So if you want to do scholarship, it may be beneficial for you to do scholarship. Some people burn out faster because scholarship, you have to grade a lot. I got carpal tunnel from grading, right? I'm sitting at the computer, I'm grading, I'm reading papers, there's office hours, there's a lot of fulfillment of duties that you have to do, but you control your schedule more if you are entrepreneurial, as Dr. Craig said, if you are in the industry. And so I started doing more consulting because I need more time with my wife and children. I wanted that time back. Being in the academy it can be exhausting depending on, and I love the term you use, depending on how you balance it, right? And so if you are one that is in a tenure track position, soon and very soon, you may go up to become somebody as great as Dean Farzine, right? Like other people had to go through certain ranks, right? Associate dean before you become an actual dean and so on and so forth. But serving your time as a tenure track, or as a tenure rather, is going to open up those doors for you to one day perhaps be considered to become a dean. Wink, wink, Dr. Wong. But I think it is very nuanced and it just depends on who you are. So you have to kind of examine who you are, what you want, like home in on those goals, and just understand the dynamics of the roles and responsibilities of what you want to do, what you want to produce, and what role you want to be in.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So let me continue along those lines. Since you talked about not adjunct, but lecturer, and if we're looking for a position, what are the basics? What do we need to have on our resume or CV for someone at any university, at a college or a university, to say, okay, this person would be a good person to be a lecturer, or this person would be a good person to be a full-time professor?
I'm sorry, panelists. I love y'all. I just want to say this one last thing. I was a TA at Pepperdine. I was a GA at Pepperdine, and I was an RA. I served in every role that you could possibly serve in scholastically if you're talking about wanting to one day become a professor. I became that because I served under Dr. Autumn Lusinski on the 5th floor at GSEP. I served under Dr. Ebony King. I served under Dr. Eric Hamilton, just to name a few. And, some of the names that I mentioned, these are gurus. These are people who have been deans, associate deans at GSEP. And I think that's important. I think you have to become an understudy. So to answer your question, whatever you want to become, you have to kind of study that and you have to go within that role. And it didn't pay bad at all, right? But even that role as a student was demanding because you're still required to produce work as a student, but you have to produce quality work for whoever it is that you're under as a TA, GA, or RA. And so for me, if I may say, that's how I became a professor. And so it also lends itself to a certain network because the person who you're studying under, they have a very large network that you as a student don't have. So they're asking you to make calls and go to lunches and things like that. So that's a great benefit, if I may say.
Dr. Wong, what about you? Because you're on the tenure track. So if a student were to ask you, what do I need on my resume or what do I need on my CV? What would you tell them?
A lot of it is how you're going to craft your narrative in order to align with the job description that you're applying for. There are lots of listservs that are starting to be mentioned in the chat to try and identify what kinds of jobs that you want, whether that be on the tenure track or not, which could be for lots of different terms. Could be called a clinical position, it could be called a visiting position, it could be full-time lecturer, it could be lecturer. So just really aligning to that. I think I've been on the other end where we've hired or looked to hire people before, and we are looking for somebody that we've devised or created this description because it's going to fit a specific need within our department or within our curriculum. And so we want to make sure that while we might get some wonderful applicants, we need you to connect the dots for us, because we also will get 100 applications for one job. You have to connect the dots for us, very quickly, clearly up front, what it is that you are going to bring to this space, that a bit about the specific program. It's not just a copy and paste from one university to the next. And I think we're quick to disqualify ourselves. So if you have been a TA or if you've been a GA or RA or whatnot, and you bring aspects of those experiences to your narrative. And then in the tenure track in particular, you'll want to center some of the research, because as Dr. Apong mentioned, the research that you produce as a full-time faculty member, brings more reputation to the university, as well as affects college rankings and other things as well. Like, it is a high priority. So the more that you can kind of center that. So when I applied for jobs, I actually applied to 32 jobs out of my PhD. I knew I wanted to be in California area because my wife, and then we had kids and all that stuff. So we wanted to be in our family. And yeah, for tenure track positions, I like centered research first and then brought in teaching as a second part of my narrative. And I can share a document soon in the chat. And then, but when I applied to more teaching oriented universities, which does vary, and it's not as clear cut as what some people call as R1 Research 1 or R2 Research 2. It really is going to vary by the actual institution. Then I would maybe center those teaching experiences first and foremost. So I think that narrative is going to be really critical. And then the second piece is the soft skills of networking. I've been on the hiring side, so I chair the TESOL program, and I do hire faculty for my program, and I'm choosing people that have applied or that I've met, and maybe I might cast a wide net. And if it's a lecturer or adjunct position, then I want somebody that's going to be so awesome for my students that are going to take their course and be transformed as educators in the field. So yeah, that's just kind of some aspects to consider.
Oh, no, that's excellent. That's excellent. Before I pass everyone over to Stephanie, I want to give Kanjit the last question, because on the psychology side, what would you look for on someone's resume in order to say this would be a good person to hire?
Oh, I love that question. I think everyone here has made such wonderful, relevant points, and I want to build off of a point that Dr. Wong just made about soft skills. I think it's important to realize, as a person, you're going to be coming into an environment. For example, Pepperdine's environment is very warm, it's very respectful, it's very collegiate, it's academic, it's kind. Right. So I think, I am looking not just for what you've accomplished and what you'd like to, but how you will do it. What is your essence? What is your spirit? What do you feel like? What's the energy? Will you be able to collaborate with people who are very different from you or think differently without getting an attitude? Or if you do get an attitude, then to be able to say, you know what, I had an attitude. Can I take you for coffee? I'm really sorry about that. Right. Are you accountable? So some of these soft skills are really important because this is teaching is people oriented. So if you have very good soft skills, and I think your passion, maybe your personal charisma is also important too, because teaching, you have to hold people's attention. Sometimes you have to make things that are complex kind of start simple and build. So I think, it might help to take an acting class. That might be not conventional, but part of what you're doing is you're presenting, and it's edutainment also. So that's what I would look for.
That's
Could I add a little bit to that, to both? There's a really good book called The Spark of Learning that I would highly encourage people to look at and to read, for those of you who are interested in getting into the field. But just to piggyback off of even what Dr. Wong was saying in part, is it's personality. Being on the other side of the hiring process is not, and when you are up for tenure, at least in the community college space, it is, you are judged on collegiality, and which can be kind of in an intimidating space because it's nothing tangible. So, and that could be a positive or a negative, but it becomes where, when we have interviewed and we've seen people who were completely qualified, but they seem bored, they seem uninterested in being there, like we're annoying them. And, picking up on just how you are coming across is an important aspect of that. And so there is that soft skill in being able to collaborate with others, being able to be a team player, whatever that may mean, but also being able to stand up for yourself and be fully present and knowledgeable as well.
Thank you. Dr. Opong, you had your hand raised real quick that I saw earlier. Nope, you're good. Okay. All right. Well, thank you to the panelists. Don't go anywhere because I'm going to pass you over to Stephanie because the audience has some questions for you as well. So, Stephanie, I'm passing it on to you.
Thank you, Dr. Dorn, and thank you again to our panelists that have given us just a plethora of information. I just want to go really quickly. I know we don't have much time, so I'm probably just going to take a question and you can hop right in. And thank you for the panelists as well for giving feedback on some of the questions that some of the students had on the chat as well. I think the big concern is asking, can we start teaching if we have a master's? And I think that's a big question that a lot of people in the chat have. So I just want to ask that question. Whoever would like to answer that, please feel free to jump in.
Yes, you can teach with a master's degree. I think it might depend on the institution. Some institutions might have an internal requirement that you need a doctorate, but it's not required. So even in my TESOL program, and it's a master's level program, I have hired individuals with master's degrees, although it's not as common, at least at GSEP in my program, but they are the best person for that job. So I gladly bat for them.
Thank you, Dr. Wong. Anybody else want to give their perspective?
It depends on if you're interested in being at a teacher's college, in a teacher's space. You know, if you want to be a researcher, you don't technically have as many classes to teach. But if you want a research institution, an R1, but if you want to be at a teacher's space, which is your community college or your Cal States, then you're going to be heavier on the teacher aspect. Even though the Cal States have definitely evolved a bit more to where they're leaning more into the research side, the community college does not at all. And in fact, that can also be a negative. I mean, it was a negative for me, but I didn't want to give that side of me up. But no, you do not need, but there is a pay difference. And I think that's an important aspect to put that up there.
Thank you for pointing that out, Dr. Craig. So I just want to make sure that we all understood. Yes, you can teach if you have a master's degree, right? But it also depends on what a lot of our panelists have been saying, what you want to do. Do you want to go to the tenure track? Do you want to do more research? And also there is going to be a pay difference, right? So just keeping that in mind for everyone that's been asking. I think we're running a little bit on time. So thank you so much, everyone, for clarifying that question. We're going to go on to our next item. I believe that I will be introducing Gary Younger, our GSEP enrollment officer. First, again, we just want to thank everybody on the panel, Dr. Wong, Dr. Opong, Anna Guzman, Dr. Craig Walker, and Conjit. Thank you so much. We appreciate all your help. And of course, Dr. Dorn for always facilitating for us. Without further ado, I will turn this over to our GSEP enrollment officer, Gary Younger, who will talk to us about some opportunities to be part of GSEP if you're not already part of GSEP.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, everybody, for being here. As Stephanie said, I am Gary Younger, enrollment officer at Pepperdine GSEP. I'm actually one of 6 enrollment officers within the program or within GSEP, where we offer 17 programs, both in person and online. Those are separate divisions. I happen to personally cover 2 of those programs, the doctorate in clinical psychology and the Master of Science in Applied Behavior Analysis, both for our in-person division. We're supported by a team of half a dozen really great processing personnel that support the enrollment team by receiving documents, reviewing documents, being accessible to prospective students, inserting those documents into digital student files, etc. As enrollment officers, we field inquiries, we review applications, we cover the application requirements, etc. We appear at virtual information sessions and webinars like this one. And if you would like further information on our programs, particularly for the ones that I cover, Again, the MSABA program, Master of Science in Applied Behavior Analysis, that is, or the Doctorate in Clinical Psychology. I could be reached at email address gary.younger, so gary.younger at pepperdine.edu. I could be reached direct at 310-568-2334. If you go to our website at gsep.pepperdine.edu and click on admissions for any of our course offerings, you'll find a link to schedule an appointment with the various enrollment officers that are assigned to each of the programs. That link will be to schedule an appointment, which will basically provide you with access to openings on our calendars. And we will call you on the date and time that you select. That's about what I have for y'all today. And again, I want to thank everybody for being here. And thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for your time, Gary. We appreciate it. And if you aren't part of GSEP, I hope this great Jammy session has convinced you why GSEP is so awesome. Handing it over to Usman to talk about some resources for us.
Thank you, Stephanie. First, I want to mention our commitment to promoting access. As mentioned earlier, our vision at GSEP Career Services is that every graduate will have the clarity, confidence, and community to access, thrive in, and transform our future workplace. And as part of this, we want to ensure that each of our graduates have access to our resources and services from an equitable lens and to foster a sense of community and belonging for each of you while being able to honor unique backgrounds and identities. And as part of this, we have some resources we've highlighted. So first we have the Project Match, which is a program hosted by the LA Community College District for preparing future faculty and within the community college system. And then we also have the Postdoctoral Fellowship Program, which we've highlighted, which basically provides and offers fellowships as well as professional development and faculty mentoring opportunities by the UC system. And then we've also highlighted some other resources additionally on our participant shared drive where we have highlighted some sample questions for higher ed faculty that you can review on your own time. And then we've also included a faculty job application guide as well as an insider perspective in navigating the California community college landscape. Thank you. And I'll pass it back over to Stephanie.
Thank you so much, Usman. So just to circle back with everyone, we want to know what your experience was in our first Jammy session of the academic year. We want to know how we did, how we can improve, and just want to hear from you. So if you go ahead and scan our QR code and take a short survey, you will be eligible for our drawing of an Amazon gift card. And what's next? So we actually have our next Jammy session on October 22nd at 12 p.m., same time, here via Zoom, and it's for research careers. Design your path for the funding landscape ahead. So I hope to see you all in our next Jammy session, and maybe we can connect again. And next, I'm handing it over to Amy so she can tell you a little bit more about our social media.
Thanks, Stephanie. So please stay connected with us and follow GSEP across all of our social media platforms. Please follow us on our LinkedIn page to engage with fellow thought leaders, connect with today's panelists, and network with your fellow colleagues. You never know, your next collaboration could just be one connection away. So please stay connected. Don't miss out on any insight, news, and more events.
Right. Well, we're coming towards the end, and thank you everyone for staying to the very end. I would love to just take this moment to take just a fun group photo. So if you feel comfortable, please turn on your camera, and on a count of 3, if you just want to select your favorite emojis, that would be super fun. So, oh, I love the catch. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Cheese.
And just one more. Ready? 2, 3. There we go.
10. Thank you guys so much for staying till the very end. This was such a great first Jammy to kick off the school year.
Yes, thank you all for being here. And I just want to thank the panelists again. I couldn't keep up with all the wisdom and advice that you gave. So I'm going to go through the chat myself and read through them. If we didn't get to your question, also please feel free to email Career Services. For students and alumni, we offer career design sessions and document feedback sessions. So we're happy to help support you in your journey of landing an adjunct or faculty position. So thank you all again, and we look forward to seeing you in October. you.